Bernard Law Montgomery was born in Surrey in 1887 and, as commander of the Allied ground forces in Normandy before and after the D-Day landings, he was a bona fide war hero. However, his connection with Portsmouth Football Club is perhaps less widely known, but here at the club he remains a revered figure for his inveterate letter writing, giving leadership tips to the captain and managers of the team, through to purportedly scouting the legendary Dougie Reid, star of the championship teams of 1949 and 1950, and even, urban myth perhaps, insisting we changed from black to Red Sox in 1947. He was club president from 1944 to his death in 1976, and we were delighted to welcome his great-grandson, Henry, himself Viscount Montgomery of Alamein, to Fratton Park to share the story of a great man, starting by explaining the reason for his visit.
Specifically today, 82 years ago to the day, grandfather came to a football match here at Fratton Park, which I now know was between Portsmouth and Bamford. And Portsmouth won. 3-2, was it?
3-2, yeah. Nearly 9,000 people in the ground as well.
9,000 people, so that was a good wartime spectator numbers. So yes, I'm since the 6th of April and running up until the 6th of June, I'm on a journey which I'm calling In Monty's Footsteps, and I am fundraising for a thing called Operation Remembrance, which is the educational program of the British Normandy Memorial. And the memorial is in Normandy, and on the columns of the memorial are listed the names of, engraved on the columns are the names of 22,500, just over, who died in the Normandy campaign between the 6th of April 1944 and 6th of June 1944, D-Day, and the end of August 1944, the end of the Normandy campaign. And Operation Remembrance hopes to be able to reflect on the stories really of that time, and actually bring to life why those stories are still important today in increasingly unstable world. I think we need to learn the lessons of sacrifice that were made for the freedoms that we enjoy today. So that is why I'm on this journey to raise money. So my journey is not about Monty, although I'm calling it In Monty's Footsteps, because in June and April and May 1944, grandfather did travel the length and breadth of Britain, and he visited factories, he visited troops, he watched training exercises, he held various conferences around the country where he was talking about the sort of strategy to D-Day and the plans for D-Day. But he also went to a couple of football matches, in fact more than two, I think, but two in particular, one at Hampden Park last week, on the 22nd of April, and this one at Fratton Park.
And I mean, it's quite interesting because there's a connection as well with that game at Hampden Park, because one of the players in the Scotland team was a player called Jimmy Stephen, who subsequently signed for Portsmouth in 1949 and ended up playing one game in our 1949-50 championship season. I think we met with Jimmy's daughter Leslie earlier on to kind of pad out that story, because that's a fantastic kind of story in itself. But when you started your kind of research into doing this, I mean, were you aware of his connections with Portsmouth Football Club, or has this come as a little bit of a sort of like a surprise to you?
No, I think I always knew that. I mean, I always knew he was a very keen footballer. I mean, he was sort of he played football at school. Mm-hmm. I think he played football for various army teams. Whether he actually played for the army itself, I don't know, but he certainly played and organised matches. So he was known for being quite a sportsman when he was young in the army and certainly at school. So I knew about his enthusiasm for football, and I did know that he was president of Portsmouth Football Club. But what I didn't know, and sort of came as a surprise to me, and why actually I had visited two places where he was watching football matches, was I didn't realise the sort of role of football during the Second World War. I sort of naively, I think, thought, you know, that actually there were probably better things to be doing during the Second World War than playing football matches. But I've since realised how actually important it was in terms of keeping morale high during the Second World War.
And indeed, from Portsmouth Football Club's perspective, I mean, we had a connection going with Monty, sort of going back to the 1930s when he was headed up the garrison here in Portsmouth, and he attended a few games then. But he became Portsmouth Football Club president in March 1944. When he was based back down in Portsmouth, ready for the D-Day landing. So we've got a very strong connection with him because he was our president during our glory years when we were champions of England in 1949, champions of England in 1950. And I think the interesting thing is he took an active interest in club affairs, and he was an inveterate letter writer. Yes. And I think we've got on one of the walls that we showed you earlier a letter that he wrote to the captain, Reg Fluin, at the time to congratulate the team on being top of the First Division towards the end of 1948. But we've got actually a letter that we have at the moment on loan from the family of George Smith, who was another manager of ours in the 1960s. And this letter, well, perhaps you can hold up the photograph first, if you could, and sort of show us that, because we've got a photograph here.
So is that at the same time?
This is at the same time. This was when Monty visited Portsmouth. It probably would have been around about April 1962, and Pompey were in the third division by then, and we were struggling to kind of win promotion back to the second division. And Monty's actually pictured here with the club directors at the time and the manager George Smith.
And George Smith is the tall guy.
Yes, George Smith is the tall guy in the photograph there.
Grandfather,
and next to your grandfather. But Pompey were kind of like hoping to win promotion over Easter, and we've got a fabulous letter here that Monty wrote to George Smith. So perhaps you might just read out how he approached speaking to the manager or writing to the manager.
Just looking at the first line of this letter, I'm not sure that George Smith, who he just calls my dear Smith, would have been too enthusiastic about receiving this letter, because he writes on the 25th of April, which is presumably right at the end of the season.
It was, yes.
I order you to get 4 points at Easter. Don't know when Easter was that year, but I will be content with 3. Well, was those were in the days when 4 points was 2 wins.
2 wins, it ought to be, yeah.
Because you got 2 points for a win, didn't you? And
yeah, we did.
Well, yeah. Now it's 3 points.
It's 3 points now, yeah.
But I'll be content with 3, so that was a win and a draw.
It was a win.
And does history relate what happened?
Well, I think in actual fact the good news is that we did manage to win promotion that weekend. So I think Monty would have been quite pleased with the outcome at the end of the day. But I think the other thing is he was quite keen on teams making good starts to the following season.
And that comes on later on. But actually, that makes more sense, because I thought this was an order to get 4 points, but he'd be content. I thought, but actually he's writing retrospectively, isn't he? So I ordered you to get 4 points at Easter, but I'll be content with 3, because they actually got 3, because he then goes on to say, I congratulate you very much on getting Portsmouth out of the third division, which was completely the wrong place for a famous team. While the players all did their stuff, the major credit goes to you. Well, there you go. He thought, but he then went on to say, which is interesting, because he couldn't help himself advising on strategy, which was obviously something my grandfather was quite keen on. And he goes on, so your task is now to lead us back into the first division where we properly belong. And I feel sure you will do it. My observations of league football lead me to the conclusions that it is easier to collect points earlier than in the season and more difficult towards the end. Indeed. I thought we must start the season with a bang. And did you?
We won the first game of the following season 4-1. So I think yeah, Smith followed his orders to the letter there. I think it is quite interesting as well that letter shows that Monty was always willing to give credit to others, wasn't it, in that way, and kind of made sure that the sort of like the credit was apportioned where it was due. Because he was somebody who was by and large the troops he served under him were kind of people who totally respected what he was about.
Yeah, and he loved his troops. I mean, that's comes across very strongly in everything he wrote. and I'm not going to be able to quote it verbatim, but the last paragraph of his memoirs is absolutely totally dedicated to the sort of heart that he felt, the heartfelt feelings he had towards the loyalty and the fortitude, I think is the word he used, of the troops that served under him. And he said basically they were second to none. So he loved his soldiers. But he'd have also, this letter to George Smith, would have appreciated the difficulties of being a leader, because I think he was, obviously giving some advice.
Absolutely. Well, I'm sure it was well taken. Well, we're very proud here at Portsmouth Football Club to have the association with Monty, and we're delighted that you've come along to the Fratton Park today and shared a bit of your story and a bit of and we've been able to share a bit of ours, and we hope to get you to a match in the not too distant future, so you can well and truly go in Monty's footsteps and kind of see his beloved Pompey play again.
Well, I think I'll have to do that. I mean, I have only last week was the first football stadium I walked into, ever been to. I've not been to a football match in my life yet, so perhaps this will be the first one sometime in the near future.
Well, you're now an honorary member of the Pompey History Society, so we'll be signing you up for that, and we look forward to seeing you at Fratton Park. Henry, thank you very much.